What is up, my aesthetic boys? It's Fresh, back with another storytime episode with the most highly requested revenge subreddit out there, NuclearRevenge with a dash of SupernovaRevenge. Destroy my mailbox? How about I end your football career? So I lived in a small suburb in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas most of my young life in the 80s and 90s. In this town, high school football, edit American football, where everyone smashes into each other like a bunch of savages, was like a local religion, and the booster club was like the mafia, even going as far as buying off the cops to let their precious football star kids run amok across town, usually pinning the blame for their shenanigans on bad kids like myself. I wasn't popular. In fact, I was quite the opposite, because in a small town in the mid-90s, a nerdy, grungy metalhead with no interest in sports such as myself stuck out like a sore thumb. My home and property was often the subject of vandalism, much to me and my dad's annoyance. The most annoying thing was having to buy a new mailbox like every few days because it would be smashed to bits. One day, me and a couple pals were poking around a scrapyard when I found a metal pole with a flat piece of metal across the top. Ideas started churning in my head. I dragged it home along with some other metal scraps and welded together a 100+ pound invincible steel mailbox and cemented it into the ground where our flimsy stainless steel one used to be. My dad high-fived me for the ingenuity and the welding skills I learned in shop class. Over a week went by and no mailbox incidents happened, but at school, there was a huge buzz because one of the star football players seriously messed up his shoulder. He had a football scholarship waiting for him when he graduated, but that was ended as his injury left him unable to play ever again. I never put two and two together until my dad got a summons to court for the malicious injury of Jockey McDouchebag. It turns out this jackass was the one destroying my mailboxes. He would have his friends drive him past my house in his car at a high speed while he smacked it with a baseball bat while he leaned from the passenger side window. When I installed the solid steel mailbox, he tried the same thing and, well, bye-bye shoulder, bye-bye football career. The lawsuit against me and my dad never got off the ground, the parents dropping it when my dad's lawyer successfully wrangled a change of venue due to threatening answering machine messages from the local booster club. I felt a little bad at first, as I never intended to destroy this guy's dreams for the future, but now that I look back on it, he brought it all on himself for being an entitled piece of scum. Well, here's where the judgment call comes in on the intent of this revenge. Really, I think that OP was simply trying to protect his property, financially, and that there's no case against him. This wasn't a trap, and the football star was entirely at fault, but the results were relatively cataclysmic. Losing a football scholarship is no joke, especially in a town like that. How would you guys rate this revenge? EK tries to get me arrested? Enjoy your own criminal record. Background info. This happened when I was in sophomore year and was a bit of a nerd, but in a weird phase where I was actually starting to get some confidence. I spent the last 2 years thinking about launching an online business back when Shopify wasn't as popular and prominent, and finally started to keep on track. So I spent several weeks going to wholesale websites, gathering products, designing the websites, etc. Once it launches, I decide to start small and only use my school district as the target market. Of course, there is mistrust with this system because no one takes a high school kid with an Amazon-esque website seriously, but after a while and some small purchases, I had a decent customer base with around 10 to 25 orders per week. This was first when the school found out about it, and the assistant principal, person designated to watch our specific graduation class for all 4 years we were there, calls me down to his office and basically lectures me on the importance of the legality and on how I need to change the name of the website. Basically, I named it after the school, which was named after a well-known politician's family, and they didn't want legal issues. I did a lot of homework involving this and legally checked everything, especially since I was a minor and I didn't want to cause any issues from my own family. I didn't care that much. I had been meaning to reboot the site and make it more lighter and modern anyways. I changed the name and moved on. Issues begins. Now, EK was a highly manipulative kid. He was one of those unlikable and bratty people who made up stories to attract girls and popularity. He always bragged he was going to be rich because of how rich his parents were. Girls would be obsessed with him. He was going to be in movies. Basically, all sorts of delusional claims. I started out being uneasy friends with him, meaning I just talked to him in class, but I slowly drifted away from him because he would constantly flirt and harass these two girls even though they told him not to, and I tried to stop him. Most of our entire grade didn't like this kid, but then he claims he owned the website and ran it, and if anyone knows marketing, an unsavory person with ownership is bad for business. So I confront him, and he apologizes, saying that he'll retract his claims and say the truth. The next day, he did the exact opposite and spread rumors of how the situation happened in the opposite manner. This angered me, and he forced my hand. I went straight to the site and made a notification post and email to all of my customers saying that due to several circulating rumors about our business, we would like to remind our customers that EK does not own the website, nor is he connected with us in any way, shape, or form. Thank you for your service. Please be sure to check out our Easter sale. Embarrassed, Entitled Kid makes the most insane claim that I have ever heard, that I'm using the website to launder and sell drugs and weapons through school. Post-Columbine, this was taken very seriously, and I was called down to the office where I found my AP and 3 police officers waiting for me. They questioned me, the website, etc. while patting me down and searching my backpack, jacket, and belongings. They freaked out when they saw a condom and credit card knife. Yeah, it's my own damn fault for having a blade at school, but I was an EDC guy who never did anything wrong. Honestly, I wasn't as embarrassed as I was worried for the optics on this. They considered this plausible intent and cause, and I was handcuffed and put into a police cruiser, a pretty comfy Dodge Charger to be honest, as they headed over to my house and called my mom telling them the situation. They asked to let them search my room, and only my room, and my mom obliges. With us being immigrants, she didn't want any trouble, and she probably couldn't think straight from seeing her son in handcuffs. It angered me for a cop to hold me against the wall while I'm restrained, while 2 more turned my room upside down looking for something that didn't exist, while my mother cried her eyes out as this was happening. They didn't find anything of interest except this out-of-school project I was working on. It was a fire gloves project to search it up. I had 3 of them and parts for at least 3 more. The officers asked me what it was and how it worked. I told them the basics, and it was for science fair. They took them in as evidence and questioned the legality of the gloves while taking pictures along with the single canister of butane fuel. I get suspension for 3.5 days. The rest of my school day was in-school suspension, aka isolation. But no criminal charges since there was no evidence. Well, no duh. I checked the office's sign-in sheet. Whenever we talk to an AP or assistant principal, they keep a record of the time, name, and date of when someone comes in. As I signed out to, I see one name before my own. Entitled Kid's parent. My anger doubles as all I can think of is ways to kill him, but I calm myself, saying that his time will come. The next 3 days allow me to plan for my revenge. Revenge time. One of my friends had a recording of how EK said he wanted to push a girl off a balcony at a party they both were at because she rejected him. Maybe somehow that recording was emailed to the police department, teachers, and several students through a throwaway email. I recorded him stalking this girl from school and all the way to her house and peeking in through her windows. This didn't happen once, twice, but 4 times. This was edited almost like a montage and emailed as well. Once every 5 weeks, the school brought in drug dogs. I saw a canine police car in the parking lot and quickly texted my friend that was a pothead. I told him to bring a weed brownie and put it in EK's bag when during second period, which was at the other side of the school so he wouldn't get caught. This went swimmingly as hallway banter was filled with EK being caught with drugs in school. End result. EK was expelled, had a restraining order filed on him by the girl along with 2 others who came forward, and had a court case the next month. The second girl had a boyfriend who was a classmate of mine, and I let him know what he was doing. Somehow the guy found out where he lived, and him and his friends keyed his car, slashed his tires, stole his shoes, and jumped him. He was found guilty for possession of marijuana. I don't know the real charge, but the state I live in is very strict with weed. This resulted in several months of juvenile detention where he was beat up even more. Where he is now, I don't know, but I doubt he succeeded like how he bragged he would. I spent the rest of the year in a very peaceful mindset. Clearly, OP enacted the revenge that he saw fit. and while it was about as cool and calculated as any that I've seen, part of me feels like it shouldn't have been necessary. With EK's visit to the assistant principal on the books, it should be clear to school and local law officials that he was making both dangerous and slanderous accusations about OP. Planting drugs on him effectively destroyed his immediate life, but was it supernova worthy? I wanted my father to understand I wasn't coming. My parents divorced when I was in first grade. Not only did my dad disappear like Houdini, he stole my mother's ATM card to her personal account and drained her dry. My mother, being the saint she is, didn't even bat an eye. She still was cordial to him and never said a negative word about him. To me, my dad, albeit abandoning us, was still my hero. From 1st through 5th grade, I had the usual abandoned by dad stories. Maybe 1 or 2 visits in a year and 50 times of me waiting by the front window with my suitcase packed to go to his house and him never showing up. My mom, through all of this, was supportive and never said an ill word about him, so he still stayed my hero. When I was in 6th grade, my mother finally remarried, and my father, who only had a picture of me at 8 months old in his wallet, went ballistic. Did I mention he never paid child support? He would use his father's social, they had the same name, to get away with it. After my mom remarried, he let it be known that I was now my stepdad's responsibility. He cut off communication with me until I graduated high school. He didn't attend my graduation or send a card. What he did do was write me an email thanking God he no longer had to pay child support. He didn't anyway. What really broke me was his ruthless and brutal attack on my mother, attacking her weight, looks, teeth, and blaming any perceived negative traits that I had on her. For the first time, I realized what a cowardly piece of trash he was. I responded in kind. He told me I was no child of his and that I was a waste. After that, I vowed that I would hurt him. 10 years later, my father, not interested in my wedding or my son, reached out to me. You see, he's a diabetic, and one of his organs was failing and he didn't have long. He's too far down on the waitlist and he needed someone in our family to donate. NuclearRevenge activated. I answered his email. I met up with him and pretended that I didn't hate his guts. I went and got tested to see if I was a match. I was. Did the therapy and met with doctors and his therapist. We scheduled the surgery. The day of the surgery, we met at the hospital. I smiled in his face and let him know that I wouldn't be going through with the surgery. I watched the confusion line his face. I just wanted you to know that you're no father to me and you're a waste. I left the hospital and drove home. My mom was pretty annoyed with me that I took it that far. My father is dying and I will be attending the funeral out of spite, and I will let everyone know what a piece of trash he was. TLDR, father abandoned me and called me a waste. Later in life, he needs an organ. I agree and match with him and abandon him at the hospital the day of the surgery after calling him a waste. He will die and I will ruin his funeral. I absolutely hate to see such a kind woman be taken advantage of like this, and I can see why OP snapped when his father so blatantly failed to return the honestly undeserved kindness, respect, and restraint that his mother had shown. Was it going too far to fake him into thinking his life would be saved with a donor organ? I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. Be sure to vote in the poll. Park in our disabled spot? Enjoy selling your home. So my little sister, who is the sweetest girl in the world, is 12 years old but can't walk or communicate. Her mental age is around 6 months. She obviously cannot attend a regular school, but since we live in a big city, there is a wonderful school for kids like her. Even though we don't own a car since we don't need one, we got the city to put up signs in front of our house designating a 4-meter spot for wheelchair pickup and drop off for her school bus every morning and afternoon. The signs went up perhaps 2 years ago, and after the first week, we never really had any issues since most of our neighbors are wonderful and totally understanding of our designated spot. For some context, we live in perhaps a poorer community, though we're well off, but in our 9 years here, we've had nothing but great interactions with everyone. Sadly, the neighborhood is gentrifying, and we're getting more self-centered people with their Mercedes-Benz or Audis honking while my sister gets loaded onto her school bus, which takes around 4 minutes but does block our little street. This really pisses us off, as well as the other sane people that witness it. Naively, we thought this would be the extent of our unpleasant interactions. In September, we woke up like on any other Monday morning to find a shiny BMW parked in our disabled spot. It wasn't just partially in it, it was positioned perfectly to take up the entire spot. To make things worse, there were about a dozen open spots on the block, and it's not like they were all vacated that morning since we woke up at 6 a.m. We were baffled. I'd seen this car many times since last July, and it was definitely the same car since there aren't many burgundy sports cars in our neighborhood. It was usually parked about 20 meters south on our street, so we knew it belonged to a neighbor a few doors down. We did all the basics in this type of situation. We took a picture, took down the license plate, and called the police to report it. The cops came by within the hour and wrote a big fat ticket. I believe it was for $700, but don't quote me on it. Anyways, it was a significant amount. At around noon, a smug, angry guy came knocking on my door. I had the day off from school and was home on my own. It was obvious that this was the owner of the car, so I made a quick decision to record the conversation, or screaming match, on my phone. I opened the door, and before I could say a thing, the douche lays into me. I'm a 16-year-old guy, and he's in his mid-40s, midlife crisis maybe. He accuses me of all things ranging from putting up those signs this morning to frame him to being racist. He was East Asian, I believe, but we have a really diverse community. He goes on to say that disabled spots shouldn't even be a thing, that it's always empty, totally shooting himself in the foot based on his previous comments, that we should pay for his undeserved ticket, that it wasn't even an inconvenience and the spot next to his was free, and my sister could just get on the bus from there, blah blah blah. Once he finished, I said, okay, and shut the door on his furious face. He rang the doorbell another 5 times before storming off. To my satisfaction, the recording caught everything fairly clearly. In the evening, I told my parents what had happened and gave my dad a copy of the recordings. We have a pretty tight-knit community for the most part, and there is a neighborhood Facebook group with around 3,000 members. My dad decided to post a summary of what happened along with the recording and a picture of the car in our spot on the page. There was an immediate uproar with people saying they would fight back or whatever. We were humbled by the feeling that our community was standing up for us, but we didn't think anything would come of it. The next day, I leave the house and go to school and walk by the guy's car, back in his normal spot, and notice that the front right tire was deflated. Upon closer inspection, it was slashed. As I said, our community is tight-knit, but I can't say I expected anything like this to happen. The guy must have seen the Facebook post because he didn't come back to our house to complain or accuse us of anything. The following weeks were sweet. Whenever I saw him in public, people would go up to him and remind him that he was a horrible human being. A bit harsh in my opinion, but they weren't my words. In November, his house had a for sale sign in the window. The house market had also gone down by a bit. I'm always kind of curious about how much houses similar to ours are selling for compared to how much we paid for ours in 2011, so I knew what he paid for it in July. Once I saw the for sale sign, I rushed home and checked the local house listings, and lo and behold, he was selling for $90,000 less than what it was going for in July. He really wanted to get out of our neighborhood. While his crime wasn't nearly worth $90,000, I must say that I don't feel bad. Worst case scenario, he sells that obnoxious car of his, which would easily cover the lost money. Let's just say that we haven't had a single car parked in my sister's spot since. This right here is a fantastic 1-2 punch of revenge and karma. Karma was gonna do its thing, but it needed a bit of a push in the right direction, and once that Facebook post gained enough traction that he felt the immediate need to move, his monetary fate was sealed. Call it karma for his greed or entitlement, but this is definitely a special kind of stars aligning just right revenge. Be sure to let me know what you guys think. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. Be sure to subscribe for more daily Reddit content. Drop a like if you liked the video, and I will see you all tomorrow.